por favor. Venga, por favor.
Hi, hello. This is Jose from the Spanish Museum. Nice meeting you.
Because someone went.
Thank you. I'm sorry, actually, I don't know.
When she finishes the intervention, she will be giving a talk for it. Okay? Very, very good. Please. Yes. Yes. Of course, please. Check if it's working. Yes. Hello, Mr. Executive Secretary, Excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues, I have the honor to moderate this panel on multilingualism. Language is the primary tool for expression and communication. Language allows us to share our ideas and thoughts. There are roughly 7,000 languages worldwide. Although there is a lot in common among languages, however, each language is unique, and the way it reflects the culture of the people who speak it and in its structure. International organizations are composed of member states and constitute the best reflection of the world's diversity in language, in nations, in peoples. How this diversity is managed and reflected in the daily conduct of work of the international organizations is very important, as it would ensure effective and increased participation of all in the organization's work, ultimately contributing to better outcomes. In this sense, multilingualism is not only an expression of diversity, it is also a tool, an effective tool in reinforcing and advancing multilateralism. Based on this conviction, the CTBTO strives to pursue multilingualism in its daily work. Despite the challenges posed by the pandemic and the budgetary constraints, the CTBTO has been working on achieving gradual progress in making more information available in more languages, whether in its outreach efforts, documentation, training programs, and social media platforms. It is in line with this commitment to multilingualism that the CTBTO has organized the panel of multilingualism for the purpose of offering a platform for a thought-provoking discussion and for raising the visibility of this important issue. We have with us today professionals from different backgrounds who will be reflecting on topics related to multilingualism in international organizations with a specific focus on the CTBTO. And they will be addressing questions such as, why does multilateralism, why does multilingualism in multilateralism matter? And how can we improve and respond to the challenges faced in multilingualism. I would like to inform you that this session will be translated to the 6 UN official languages. I will be moderating this panel in English, and our distinguished guests will each speak in his mother tongue. Feel free to use the desk table microphones to listen to the simultaneous interpretation. Please excuse me for my voice. I will do my best to make my intervention or moderation as clear as possible. First, allow me to welcome our guests. We have today with us Monsieur Georges Nakse Ngofgang, His Excellency and permanent representative of the Organisation Internationale de la Francophonie. We are happy to have you here among us. Professor Erlan Gatir-Bekov, who will be joining us online. He is the Director General of the National Nuclear Center of the Republic of Kazakhstan and current chair of the Working Group B. Mr. Bashir Azam, Deputy Permanent Representative of the Mission of Lebanon to the United Nations in Vienna, to the IAEA and the CTBTO. Mrs. Ping Yu, Alternate Permanent Representative of the Mission of China to the CTBTO. And Senor Jose Manuel Ramirez Arrazola, Counselor at the Permanent Mission of Spain in Vienna. The way we were going to organize this panel is that we will have 2 sessions. Firstly, each of our panelists will have an intervention. Then it will be followed by an interactive discussion. Without further ado, allow me to introduce our first panelist before giving him the floor. Ambassador Georges Nakse Ngofgang, His Excellency is the permanent observer, as we mentioned, of the OEF to the United Nations in Geneva. Until his appointment to Geneva, Mr. Ambassador had been the Director of Political Affairs and Democratic Governance at the OIF since 2017. Prior to joining the organization in 2004, Mr. Nakse Ngofgang had been a faculty member de l'Université de Montréal and a legal consultant for the United Nations Development Program. Ambassador, you'll be delivering your speech in French, as I understand. Votre Excellence, vous avez la parole.
You have the floor, Excellency.
Merci. Thank you, moderator, executive secretary, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, ambassadors, distinguished delegates. You will understand, of course, that for the International Organization of Francophonie, it is not just an honor, but a true pleasure and deep satisfaction to have been invited here to participate in the discussions in this panel, which has to do with very important issues for our particular mission, especially the issue and the problem of multilingualism for us Francophonie specialists. The moderator has already referred to the characteristics which are specific to the languages that we deal with. It's not just a way of interacting amongst humans, languages, but behind those languages, this whole heritage, a cultural heritage, a wealth of cultures, of symbols. So it is actually a way of perceiving the world. It is a way of sharing with a given audience a certain way of broaching one's idea and contributions on how to resolve common issues and problems and concepts, a way of actively participating in the human community and negotiating, in engaging in give and take. This is, of course, an interaction between men and women within the human community that we are members of. Institutionally, you quite rightly referred to the link between languages and multilateralism. It's a natural lever, of course, because a language is, of course, a way of achieving the objectives of the Charter. Universalism incarnate. Universalism being an expression of the various visions which enable us all individually and as a group to communicate, to make ourselves understood, to try to engage in action, and the way to propose solutions to any problems emerging which may enable the UN to make progress towards its goals through the commitments shouldered by states, of course. So without languages, multilateralism itself would not exist, quite simply. And to enable languages to really unfurl their possibilities, it's important to have the men and women using those languages to be able to express themselves in those languages of negotiation. And as I've just said before, to participate and to engage in that vital give and take of our world. So languages are a lever to achieve the inclusiveness that we are aiming at. When we say inclusiveness, of course, I suppose that we are presupposing an action which takes place first. But that's one of the prerequisite conditions for international democracy. It's through languages that one can express one's point of view, one's vision of the world, and to actually be completely in the loop when it comes to decision making as well. So this is what our panel actually is all about, to recall these aspects, these characteristics, which actually highlight the importance of multilingualism per se. In this connection, I also wanted to say to what extent we value a panel such as this in a given context. It is the right place to pay tribute to this initiative. You know that CTBT-O is a highly specialized agency, organization. And when we say highly specialized, this obviously implies the vast range of complex issues that are dealt with within it. It refers to all of the diverse, very scientifically sophisticated terms and notions that have to be understood. And if all of these aspects are not taken on board fully and understood, then it is quite possible, unfortunately, that some of the participants may physically be there, but actually they're out of the loop because they don't understand things properly. And this is, of course, the brunt of the initiative that is being taken here, and the goal of francophonie itself. You know that there are an odd 300 million people involved, over 5 continents, and of course there's a vast diversity here of French speakers, many of whom work within the United Nations system and its organizations. And once again, I would like to say this is why I'm very happy to be amongst you and to be in the loop. Thank you.
Monsieur l'ambassadeur, pour votre intervention.
Thank you very much, Ambassador.
The CTBTO is a specialized organization and a technical one. Therefore, multilingualism is even more important, and the importance is more reinforced so that experts and representatives can fully assimilate and understand the scientific notions that are included in the deliberations. I thank you for your intervention. Now, joining us remotely is Professor Erlan Batirbekov. Hello, Professor. Can you hear us? If Professor cannot hear us, maybe we can. Okay, we will be patient for 1 minute to be able to connect with him. He's muted.
No, I'm okay.
Okay, you're not muted anymore. We can clearly hear you now.
Okay, good.
Good. We are happy to have you with us remotely, Professor. How are you doing?
Yes, I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you. I will make a quick introduction to introduce you and before giving you the floor. So, Professor Batirbekov is a professional nuclear engineer by training. He has occupied several posts in this field since 1992. Since 2013, he held the post of Director General of the National Nuclear Center of the Republic of Kazakhstan. He's an expert in non-proliferation issues and conversion of Semipalatinsk test site, and has held various multilateral posts, such as advisor to the UN Secretary General to consider the role of verification in advancing nuclear disarmament, and he's currently chairing our working group B. So also, it's very interesting to have him with us. Professor is a recognized nuclear scientist, doctor of physics and math, professor with more than 200 scientific publications. He will be delivering his intervention in Russian language, and we would like to give him the floor. Professor, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Добрый день, уважаемые.
Good afternoon, participants of this National Symposium, and I'd like to say straight away that I'm really sorry that I have to be speaking online. I had intended to fly into Vienna, but the flight basically had to be cancelled right before I would take the flight because I came down with a bug, and I felt that it was necessary for me to inveigh on the discussion from afar. Next slide, please. At the end of the 20th, the beginning of the 21st century is characterized by many globalization processes because of human mass migration, extending to extension of multilingualism around the globe. There is really an extension around the globe, literally. Now, being able to use several languages is a prerequisite in being a human being, fully fledged human being in our society, because this globalization implies the mutual penetration of material and mental elements of different cultures, and language acquisition is a cornerstone in studying other cultures. Cultures and language study, of course, boils down to the importance of language itself. Proficiency in several languages makes it possible to communicate in language, understand and clearly express one's thoughts, and this is becoming increasingly important. And this sort of participation is something of really total human relevance and societal relevance internationally. It's necessary to master languages to be able to fully communicate what one means, what one understands. And for example, I know Kazakh, my mother tongue, and Russian and English, and this is a prerequisite for me to be fully a participant in domestic dialogue in my countries and as well as international activity. The UN languages, all of them, all 6 of them, have great importance, of course, and almost 1/3 of our world's population, indeed, is excellent in one of those UN languages. It's especially important to have very in-depth understanding of the very languages one is working in, the language and terminology in international treaties, in non-proliferation, and it's important to have proper language proficiency to see the full extent of the treaty commitments that we have bound ourselves to, and their full application. And proficiency and multilingualism also makes it possible for all of the member states to fully and properly participate in international dialogue and cooperation. As concerns the CTBT, indeed, it's important to note that it is an international organization, and it's important for the Secretary to be fed proper information, proper data, and it's important for language to not constitute an obstacle for communication, but rather should be something which allows for crystal clear communication amongst the member states participants in the CTBT. And this is, for example, where we had proper on-site cooperative work, the OSI work, and the IDC has to be properly established and operational for that purpose. And proficiency in all of the official languages in our work is of the essence. Next slide. English is the basic work language. Arabic, English, Chinese, Russian, French are, of course, as I've already said, the UN official languages. And the day-to-day work of the CTBT very often means that the main brunt of all of the work is in the official languages, all of them. And it's possible for all of the submissions also to be properly translated, input into the system in those 6 languages. And their phrases are important, of course. For example, the CTBT is supporting multilingualism, and it's important to have this for the crafting of decisions, this decision-making process. And that is of the essence in this connection. The executive directorate and the working groups under it are all involved, of course, in this critical information exchange. And the simultaneous interpretation offered is not a luxury, not in any way. It is of vital importance to the work at hand that I'm referring to. There's a program organized on strengthening training and preparation of experts. And this is, of course, very, very important. There are 46 modules that we are working on in our 6 languages. And this is part of the general development process, the strengthening process, and the sustainment process for our involvement. And in this science and diplomacy session, we are devoting an entire session to this issue of multilingualism. Next slide, please. Now, I'd like to refer to the multilingualism issue on the basis of the activities of Group B in particular. The main purpose of this working Group B is that when and at the moment of entry into force of the treaty, the technical sustainment of the entire verification system, including a working and well-documented international monitoring network, international data center, and on-site inspections, is ready to go, is operational. In other words, in a working group B, there is technical focus on all of these multilingual aspects. It's necessary to overcome any possible misunderstanding in this prep stage. And at the request of state signatories, expert group meetings during sessions of Working Group B are provided with an interpretation. We use ECS, the Expert Communication System, in all official languages, and all the videos are with interpretation. They are recorded, stored in all the official languages, and you can choose any of the official languages with the link that you see on the screen on top of this video. This session is also going to be highlighting the issue of multilingualism in cross-cutting issues. Multilingualism is a part and parcel of the basic work of our working group. And the organization of this working approach has certain consequences, of course. So this is why we have packed into the agenda of the Working Group B 60, which is going to be taking place in March, precisely multilingualism as a multidisciplinary cross-cutting issue. We've already explored ways in which to further improve and strengthen multilingualism in the technical work of CTBTO, and will continue to do this. Next slide, please. In this fashion, to draw to a conclusion, I'd like to say that since we are making headway on multilingualism, all of the participants in the CTBTO process has a full possibility to participate in our work, and this in order to attain a high effectiveness in our work to attain our common goals. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you for your intervention. As you have rightly pointed out, translation and understanding of language is a prerequisite for a full participation in the work of international organizations, and for having a voice and a leading role, we need to understand all the documents, the proceedings, etc. And thank you also for giving insight for the specific work of the Working Group B from the multilingualism perspective. Now I would like to welcome our third guest, Mr. Bashir Azzam. Mr. Azzam is the Deputy Permanent Representative of Lebanon to the CTBTO and to the UN in Vienna since October 2019. He previously served at Lebanon's mission to the UN in New York, and prior to that, the mission of Lebanon in Geneva, covering different portfolios, including disarmament and arms control. A fellow of the UNODA program fellowships on disarmament since 2010, he is a published author of 2 literary works in Arabic. سيد بشير عزام، تفضل لديك أفتح لك الكلام.
جزيل الشكر.
You have the floor. Thank you very much. I will be speaking in Arabic. And first and foremost, let me thank you for inviting me. It's a privilege for me to be participating in this with a very well-known group of experts, and I'm particularly pleased to participate because this is a crucial question, first of all, but secondly because I represent a country that considers that multilingualism is part and parcel of its cultural heritage and its culture. I will be brief because there were issues that I wanted to discuss, but earlier speakers have already covered some of these, so I will be brief. But let me begin with a general comment on multilingualism within CTBTO and within the United Nations in general. And I'll be touching on questions relating to the Arab world and the Arabic language specifically. The debate today is about the importance of multilingualism. Well, we're already beyond this debate. We all have a conviction according to which multilingualism is one of the ideals and one of the core values which are essential in the United Nations. This is something that has been endorsed by all sorts of reports and resolutions of the United Nations. We all agree on the fact that multilingualism is among the stimulating factors for multilateralism. However, there is one problematic angle to this point, and I'd like to mention it, touching upon 3 points. First of all, the costs. Now, myself, personally, through my own experience in a number of posts I've occupied in the past, I noticed there was always this discussion between the member states on the one hand and the Secretariat on the other hand. Member states requiring translation and interpretation of all issues and all debates, and the Secretariat for its side trying to save on expenditures. That is the trend. And the last example was the 11th session of the United Nations states parties last month on transnational crime. And there should be a balance, an equilibrium which is struck here. But the question there is that it must be based on a conviction according to which multilingualism is not a luxury, as Mr. Batir Bekov said a moment ago before me. Multilingualism is not there to serve the egos of certain language groups. Rather, multilingualism is critically important, because if we don't protect it, we are going to be sacrificing diversity and multilateralism. The second point is the legitimacy of the representation of languages. Today, the Arabic language, and I'm proud to represent it, is the 6th official language of the United Nations. And it is also the 6th language spoken in the world by population speaking the language. But what about Hindi? What about Portugal? What about German? Other languages as well. What is their status? Where do they sit? Whereas these languages are spoken all over the world. I don't think we have any doubts about the status of languages. I think that for CTBTO, it was for technical and political reasons that we introduced the languages. And the question that arises now is, are we not perhaps going to start thinking about the democratization of the international organizations? When we introduce multilingualism, we have to be careful about this issue. Do you not think that the EU is an example? Because the EU has actually 24 official languages. Now, the third point is the levels of implementation of the languages in CTBTO or the United Nations. For example, let's take documents. The principle of multilingualism, which applies to all of the regular meetings, is really without a problem at all. But the real talks, the real decisions, the real resolutions, the reports of meetings are all negotiated and produced in the English language. Are we not giving some sort of privilege and some sort of head start for countries that have English as a mother tongue or speak English extremely well? Now, about CTBTO, and I'm wondering, as was said by the previous speaker, CTBTO has an official language, which is English. English, the official language. The Secretariat communicates with us exclusively in the English language. So here I'd like to put a question. Do you not feel perhaps that the interaction between the Secretariat and the states would be better if we were to communicate in other languages? And next, what are the implications of this issue when we are looking towards the universalization of this treaty. The last question is the recruitment criteria. The General Assembly noted recently in a number of different resolutions that there is an imbalance in the use of official languages, English and French, working languages, English and French in the Secretariat. For example, among the vacant posts that are on Inspira, 94.8% of these on Inspira required English as a working language, whereas only 11.4% had as a requirement the French language. I'm not even going to mention Arabic here, but I think it's I think you get my point. Now, challenges in particular for the Arabic language. 18th of December each year, we celebrate the World Day of the Arabic language. It's an opportunity to celebrate that day. It's next week in the Rotunda in Vienna, here at the VIC. Among my experience as a diplomat in Geneva, New York, and now in Vienna, let me tell you that the relations between the permanent missions and the translation and interpretation sections and divisions are excellent. We have very friendly relations with the translators, and I think that in terms of translation specifically, we are practically 100% satisfied. Although sometimes, occasionally, we complain about the delay, and sometimes when a diplomat who speaks the Arabic language arrives late. But now I come to interpretation, simultaneous interpretation. I think there are more issues, and that's not unexpected because we know that all language suffer from this. But there's something specific about the Arabic language in this case, and I think that most of the people present here know full well that the Arabic language is the classical language adopted. It's not a spoken language. It is a language that we don't actually speak. It's not the dialect of the 22 countries that speak Arabic. It's the language that we use to write and to communicate. And this makes communication among missions even more complicated. And even within the classical Arabic, the Fosha Arabic, there is a difference. For example, the countries of the Levant and North Africa, the term agriculture in Arabic, there are two different terms. In the Levant, we say zi'a, and in North African, we say filaha. So there are differences even within the classical language, which is supposed to unify everybody. How can these problems be solved within CTBTO and the United Nations? First of all, we have to take on this joint responsibility. Sometimes there are Arab countries that have comments to make about the translation or interpretation of certain terms, and I wouldn't want to be unfair to interpreters, but sometimes there are expressions that are used in a way that is less than fully accurate. And I know, and then my Arab colleagues, have said that we sometimes use English or French to substitute or replace the Arabic language. And to a great extent, the Secretariat, the Department of Languages, has often said that the Secretariat tries to avoid using Arabic in its communiques and in its letters. And among the reasons they give is what's left of colonialism, the leftovers of colonialism, where some countries have tried to avoid speaking Arabic, and they have stressed French or English. Now that's a shared and common responsibility, and we need to all really assume it. My experience in New York has shown me that there's an extraordinary tradition that we should apply to CTBTO. The Secretary General's Office of the United Nations organizes each year a meeting between the 6 official languages and member states. And I have attended with the Department of Languages and the Arabic Language Group in New York, and I think that creates a space. It's a space for dialogue, for discussions, to see how the use of languages can be improved and how all obstacles can be circumvented this way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Azam. You raised many interesting points, among which how important multilingualism is for enhancing the efforts of universalization of treaties. The CTBT is one among others. And another issue also, the democratization of the UN official languages and opening up to other new languages while putting the UN languages that already exist now on equal footing. And finally, the proposed meeting of the interpretation team with missions accredited here in Vienna so that a dialogue can be can take place among both parties to enhance multilingualism. I'm sorry. Thank you. I now give the floor to Mrs. Yu Ping, but I'm going to introduce you very quickly. Mrs. Ping is a counselor at the Permanent Mission of China to the UN and other international organizations in Vienna. She's specialized in the field of arms control and strategic stability. Her diplomatic career includes section head in the Department of Arms Control and Disarmament at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as well as multiple overseas posts. She was elected as a member of the advisory group during the 59th session of the Preparatory Commission. Mrs. Yu Ping will deliver her intervention in Chinese. I thank you in advance, dear panelists, for keeping your interventions a little shorter so we can leave a little bit of time for an interactive discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is a pleasure to participate in this forum. First of all, I would like to wish the Science Diplomacy Symposium and the Multilingualism Forum a full success and fruitful outcomes. I try my best to keep my speech brief. Madam Chair, the CTBT has been a key pillar of the international nuclear disarmament and new non-proliferation regime, playing a significant role in curbing nuclear arms race and maintaining global strategic stability. With the collaborative efforts of all parties, the universality of the treaty has been constantly enhanced. Preparation of treaty and the nuclear test ban has become international consensus. I think all of these achievements can be attributed by the multilingualism of the Secretariat. All of this work has played an important role in our multilingualism work. Recently, the 20th CPC National Congress was successfully held in Beijing. The Congress is not only of importance for China, but also has far-reaching implications for strengthening China's cooperation with the PDS and member states. The Global Security Initiative put forward by President Xi Jinping contributes, calls on the member states to make efforts to practice true multilateralism, seek common, comprehensive, cooperative, and sustainable security for all countries, and to strengthen the international nuclear arms control treaties. These are consistent with the purposes and objectives of the treaty. It is also consistent with the topic of this forum. China is one of the first signatories to the CTBT. We firmly uphold the purposes and objectives of the treaty, has always stood by its nuclear test moratorium commitment and taken an active part in international efforts to promote the entry into force of the treaty. For years, China has participated actively in the work of the PrepCom, strengthened international cooperation on nuclear test ban, and we support capacity building for developing countries, contributing positively to advancing the preparation of the treaty implementation. In the same time, China always valued and supported multilingual work of the PDS. We highly appreciate the PDS efforts in, for example, translating conference materials and simultaneously interpreting conferences. The multilingualism work has provided important support for Chinese experts to join the monitoring and daily maintenance of the IMS stations, discussions, exchanges, and technical trainings. Everyone knows that the work of the CTBT is highly professional and technical. Just now, the speakers have already mentioned about this. Thus, the multilingualism work has provided chance for Chinese experts to participate deeply in the work of the CTBT. It is of great help we will continue to provide support and assistance in this regard. And we also suggest that the PDS to improve the timeliness of the translation of conference materials and try to publish relevant information in Chinese on its official website and Twitter account. This will promote the treaty in Chinese. Going forward, China stands ready to continue its in-depth engagement in the various works of the PrepCon and strengthen its cooperation with the PDS and member states to advance the preparation for treaty implementation. I thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for your intervention and for the support granted by China to the work of the PrepCom. Indeed, China was one of the first signatories of the treaty, and we hope it will join ratification sometime soon. Also, as you said, multilingualism is enhanced. Actually, the treaty itself, its purposes and goals are enhanced through multilingualism. And well, at the end, we really thank China for its support, and we are working gradually to move in multilingualism in all languages, whether on Twitter or all social media. We are working on that, and there is some progress, but we promise you soon you will see Chinese on our Twitter. Thank you. I now give the, last but not least, I'll give the floor to our fifth guest, Mr. Arrazola. Mr. Arrazola, before giving you the floor, I understand that there will be a pre-recorded video from your ambassador, the permanent representative of Spain in Vienna, that will be played now. After that, I will introduce you and give you the floor. So let's see the recorded video.
There's no sound.
Y según los principios de respeto a la diversidad y el multilingüismo. La mejor manera de agradecer su trabajo.
The best way of thanking them is to make sure that we have all of the equipment before we join a hybrid session. I hope that this initiative will strengthen our constant commitment to dialogue and understanding, all of which are underpinned by the work of our interpreters and translators. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency. Thank you, Excellency, for this intervention. Back to Mr. Arrazola. Mr. Arrazola is a counselor at the Permanent Mission of Spain in Vienna since August 2020. He previously served at the Spanish Embassy in Malta, Poland, Canada, and Iran, among other posts. He holds the following Spanish decorations: Cross of the Order of Isabella the Catholic and Cross of the Order of Civil Merit. Mr. José Arrazola will be delivering his speech in Espanol. Señor Arrazola, tiene la palabra.
Muchas gracias.
You have the floor. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon speaking about multilingualism and doing so with these distinguished panelists. I'd like to associate myself with what has just said by my ambassador, who for various reasons was not able to be present with us this afternoon. But I wanted to express my thanks and my admiration to the translators and interpreters. I think they share with us, diplomats, a working tool, which is the word. And thanks to their work here at the United Nations, we also are able to develop and advance in our own work. When we talk about multilingualism, well, for me, it's important to be here today because in Spain, linguistic questions are part of our DNA. As you know, Spain has the official language, which is also the official language of the CTBTO, and that is the Spanish language. However, along with that language, there are other languages that coexist that are semi-official, regional, but they all have legal protection to a great extent, and the Constitution of Spain itself recognizes that the wealth of the different languages in Spain is a cultural heritage that must be the subject of special respect and protection. And for this reason, we are proud to be in a multilingual country. Our experience means that quite naturally, and as one of the priorities of our external policy, we defend multilingualism way beyond our borders, and we do so in the international organizations and also, of course, within the CTBTO. I'd like to say that this afternoon here in the Science and Diplomacy Symposium, there will be a panel which will be exclusively in Spanish about the scientific applications of the treaty for tsunami alerts, which will have experts from the seismic networks of Chile and Spain. We firmly believe that multilingualism means more efficiency, more effectiveness, more transparency, more inclusion, and more participation, and more accountability as well. I think many of the experts have already explained to us what are the benefits of generated by multilingualism. But I'd also like to mention that from an educational point of view, to be able to speak several languages not only contributes an advantage in terms of academic results, and it is also better possible to to find a better job at the end of the studies, but plurilingual individuals really are needed by society increasingly. Spain and UNESCO believe that a multilingual education can benefit enormously those sectors which, for whatever reason, gender, origin, ethnic origin, can sometimes suffer discrimination. If we take into account also that women and the girl child are the ones who are the most vulnerable and can, in some cases, be more affected by discrimination, we need to take into account as well that the multilingual education has beneficial effects in gender inclusion. So I would like to make a few comments about Spanish and about science, because this symposium is also about science, and we have to say that 4.4% of the scientific production on the world level is done in the Spanish language, and we believe the Spanish is also a crucial language that UNESCO has defined as the key pillars for an open science, and they are open access to scientific knowledge, scientific infrastructures, open ones, open scientific communication, commitment of social partners, and a dialogue with our own knowledge systems. Spanish can play a crucial role in the contribution to social development of science, such as the analysis of the situation of the minority languages in the scientific area. Now, reflections have been fostered by UNESCO and by a number of different Spanish-speaking countries, and here the distinguished colleague from Chile will allow me to refer to his country, one of the main countries fostering this. There are some initiatives which are quite relevant in Spain for making more visible and for fostering science, such as the interdisciplinary thematic platform, which have as their basic goal fostering initiatives which achieve progress in quality and the acknowledgement of scientific content in the Spanish language. Lastly, I'd like to refer to the meeting that was held in Santiago de Compostela, and there was a reference to Spanish there. We had the plan for fostering Spanish and Portuguese, and also fostering those tools that are based on technologies of the language and artificial intelligence, AI, for visibility and in order to disseminate science in the Spanish and Portuguese languages. Finally, about multilingualism here in the CTBTO. We all know that it has a special importance for this organization. It is a basic value of it because multilingualism favors dialogue, tolerance, understanding, and ensures effective participation of all of the members in the organization of work, as well as better transparency, effectiveness, and better results, which are obtained. I'd like to say that within the United Nations, the Secretary General, Mr. Gutierrez himself, has included multilingualism as one of his priorities and would like to maintain parity among the 6 official languages of the United Nations. Spain supports all of the efforts by the Provisional Technical Secretariat of the CTBTO in favor of multilingualism, and we hope that these efforts will yield fruit in as short a time as possible. For Spain, the question of multilingualism in CTBTO is extremely important. We are in favor of defending multilingualism that is effective, that favors communication among the 6 official languages, and a wider, broader participation of everyone in the work. As a conclusion, we firmly believe that multilingualism means more efficiency, more effectiveness, more transparency, better accountability, more inclusion, and better participation. I thank you.
Gracias, señor Rosola. As you have rightly pointed out, more multilingualism means more efficiency, more transparency, and more inclusion. And also one idea that you have brought up about the fact that sometimes lack of multilingualism is a form of discrimination. Also, this is important to mention. I thank you for your intervention. I really would have liked us to have an interactive discussion and take questions from the room. Unfortunately, we cannot because we are running out of time. This is a fascinating topic that can go on for hours and would really have loved to have your opinion and questions. However, I will unfortunately have to wrap up this meeting. I thank you all, distinguished panelists, for your very valuable contribution to this panel and for this lively discussion, hoping that the future will carry many innovative measures across all multilateral settings that will reinforce multilingualism in full respect of diversity. I thank the audience for being with us today and wish you all a good afternoon. I would just like to remind you that there is a coffee break now for 15 minutes. After that, 15 minutes. After that, please join us for the other panel, which will be tackling national data centers. I thank you.
I have an announcement for participants, for funded participants who did not sign for DSA. Please proceed to the Secretariat staff members.
Okay. So then so we have it here, yeah? Yeah. So, yeah. No, this is Bridget.
Interpretation in case you need. Would you need?
No, I don't believe. I think, yeah, I think he's speaking English. So let me.
We hear you just now. Be careful.
Mr. Babu, call him to come.
The microphones, if the panelist will be striving, it's just one, it's on, it's off. Just the slider.
Yeah. And what about here? Here, they can just use the mic. Yeah. No, it's good. Yes. I think it would be one lady. So ambassador of Brazil. Then I think yeah, Mr. Babu should sit here. Yeah, yeah, Mr. Babu. And then you can change, or you can sit there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because the ambassador of Brazil, ambassador of Moldova, and then you will be here, and yeah. Yeah, wherever between two of you. Whenever you can sit. I think it would be better if she sit here. You can sit there. So then we have both. No, no.
The only thing is, this is my water.
on?
Yeah.
Hello? So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I have been informed that there are a lot of people also watching this online. And so we have many audiences who prefer to do it online. And I request the colleagues who are standing outside to join us. This is really a very interesting topic. The topic of our discussion is about a very attractive issue, NDC for all. This is really important because it deals with the heart of a much bigger issue, which is how we can make this treaty more technically non-discriminatory. We are talking a lot about the indiscriminate nature of this treaty as one of its biggest advantages. But the question is how we can empower all states to technically benefit from the treaty membership, regardless of their current technical capability, their size, and power. And to be honest, the biggest asset of the CTBT is data. Therefore, the criteria for benefiting from membership is how much data is nationally received and analyzed every year. The more you receive data, the more you can benefit. The state can receive data if they can nominate a national body as a point of contact to receive data. This can be done through national nomination of a secure signatory account, we call it SSA, or it can be done through establishment of the NDC. Currently, 43 states have no connection at all. 8 states that have connection, they don't have NDC, and 79 countries have zero or nominal data downloads. So the figures are not so promising. Therefore, Dr. Floyd announced early this year his important initiative, NDC for All, to reduce all of these numbers. And this is the mandate that Loipa later on will explain this. In this panel, we will do our best to explain the background and the scope of this initiative, how important it is. We will also use the great wisdom of our distinguished panelists to explore the national experiences in this regard and identify some of the challenges ahead of this initiative, and possibly at the end we can have some recommendation for PTS and for state signatories. The flow of the session will be in the following line. So with your permission, we will have a short 5-minute presentation by the PTS. Then each of the panelists has 5 minutes for introductory remarks. Then we will have question and answer. And I'm hopeful that we can also receive some questions from you. So with your permission, I will invite Ms. Loipa Sanchez Lorenzo, Chief of Protocol and Senior Advisor in the PTS, which is the head of task force for NDC for All, to provide a 5-minute presentation on this topic, explaining the background. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome all of you to this panel. My name is Loipa Sanchez. I'm Senior Advisor of External Relations and the task leader of this initiative. I would like to start by, doesn't function? Okay, by telling you that this initiative is quite new because it was launched by the Executive Secretary on the 27th of June this year. It means almost 6 months ago. during the 58 Preparatory Commission. The purpose of this initiative is mainly that all the state signatory receive the benefit of the treaty. It means they receive data. This is the main purpose of this initiative. And I will stay here because this is the main and important slide that we have. Why was this initiative launched? First, there is a group of 43 countries, state signatory, that they ratify, sign the treaty, but they don't have any secure signatory account. What is the meaning of not having a secure signatory account? It means that the country cannot receive any data from the organization. If you don't have the secure signatory account, you cannot receive the data. And if you don't receive the data, you cannot use for the scientific and civil application. So this is the main group that we try to help, the 43 state signatory. There is a second group of 8 state signatory that have a secure signatory account, but they still are not installing the national data center. And there is a third group of 31 developing country, only developing country, that having secure signatory account, having national data center, they are eligible to receive a capacity building system. You don't need to have capacity building system to receive the data. The capacity building system is an add, a plus. This capacity building system, the only thing that can do is to improve the capability of your national data center. And this is why there is a lot of requests, because the country realized that by receiving this equipment, they can improve the possibility in the national data center. And I let this because you can identify yourself if you are in the list or not. So, establishing a national data center is a problem of each state signatory. And if you don't request help from us, we cannot provide help. Even if we have the set of equipment, if we want to help you, if you don't request us by not verbal, we cannot help you. So it's important to send to us this request. And here it's very important to know that apart from detecting nuclear explosion, which is the core mission of the organization, there is a lot of data and product that can be used for scientific and civil application. Among them, you can see detection and real-time warning of meteors, volcanic eruption, earthquake, tsunami, radiation from some accident. So there is a lot of, even in the aviation sector, you can use this data. And you have to learn how to use this data. And we have capacity building workshop that we only can provide to you if you request a secure signatory account and you establish your national data center. This is why it's so important. Then, how we implement this initiative launched by the Executive Secretary? Well, the Executive Secretary create a task force that I lead this task force proudly, and the task force have two kinds of work, because the initiative have two pillars. One is the outreach. Second is the technical. The outreach are the people from external relations, like as me, that engage. We are engaging with country and we are explaining the country what are the benefit, what they can do, everything. We approach to the country. This is why some of you receive the visit of our team. And then once the country, the state signatory requests officially the national data center, then the technical staff contact the country and then start communicating to implement and to create the national data center. At the same time, we developed a very important public information campaign. You can see in all media, social media, the information about NDC for All. We use NDC number 4, all, for our campaign. And we put in this campaign fact sheets that explain you how to create a national data center and what is a national data center. So our action are concentrated in the 3 groups, the 43 without secure signatory account, in the 80 countries without national data center, and in the 31 developing countries without secure signatory account. At the same time, International Data Center is working with the group of countries that are using minimal data because they have problem of connection, several different problems. What we are offering, this is the question that many of the countries request us. This is one of the main questions. What we are offering. Once you request to us a secure signatory account, we said, okay, you have to establish a national data center. National data center has to be only a room, a little room with electrical connection and internet connection. You don't need a building. You just need a room to create your national data center. And then we provide to you the so-called National Data Center in box, which is a box with a software. And this software allows you to communicate with CTBTO and receive the data. This is the first thing. All of these equipment are free of charge for the state signatory. The other that we are offering is the capacity building system, and you can see the list of the equipment. I will not read. In fact, I don't see very well from here. So there is a set of equipment that you can receive by free also. Is a donation. And we donate all the equipment, we send the expert, and the expert install the equipment by free. We are responsible for shipping the equipment and everything. The state don't pay anything. You just provide us with the room, with connection and electricity. That's it. Everything is for free, so use it.
We have only two minutes.
So, what a step? The 43 have to identify national authorities responsible and then fill out the form and send us through nonverbal. The state signatory, the same. The form and send the nonverbal. And the third group only have to send the nonverbal requesting the capacity building system. Important, you cannot request a capacity building system for other institution different from your national data center, because the idea is to improve your national data center. So you cannot request capacity building system for other institution. Outcome. Only in 5 months, we received 18 requests, 14 countries request capacity building system, 2 request national data center, and 2 requested secure signatory account. So the initiative is very welcome. And we are continuing engaging with other countries to help them to understand what is the benefit that they can reach from this initiative. As a result of technical activity deployed by IDC, we installed 2 CBS from July up to here in Oman and Montenegro, and in December, next week, will be the installation of Uzbekistan. Now the country are fighting to have the first to receive the installation. So it's very important for you. And this is my last slide. I hope you understand. If you have any doubt, please, you can contact me when you wish. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, for excellent presentation. Thank you very much for this. With this introduction, then if you allow me, I would like to invite His Excellency Ambassador Carlos Duarte, Permanent Representative of Brazil. You can have here Ambassador. Ambassador Duarte is a well-known professional diplomat with many important national positions. before being as an ambassador here, he was serving as Deputy Permanent Representative of Brazil to the United Nations, ambassador in New Delhi in India, and several high-ranking posts in Foreign Minister of Brazil. So it's a great pleasure and honor to welcome Ambassador of Brazil to share his wisdom with us. Thank you very much. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, I think. No. I think it should be on. It should be on. Just check.
Yeah. Hello? Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Mohammed, for that introduction. Thank you, Loipa, for your presentation. Dear panelists, dear audience, I hope I will concentrate my intervention on not only giving a sense of the importance of the Brazilian national experience of associating the Brazilian National Data Center with the CTBT, but also to stimulate other states that have not yet access to the data provided by the treaty's International Data Center to know more about the possibilities that exist there, so that they can perhaps consider receiving the support of the Secretariat for the implementation of an NDC, of a National Data Center, such as NDC for all, and also the various possibilities that exist there, and to make use of this extraordinary wealth of information that is there as part of the treaty's structure. So, but let me first of all just recall Brazil's commitment to the idea of a comprehensive nuclear test ban, which goes back a long way and actually predates the CTBT. And that Brazil signed the CTBT the very day it was opened for signature in New York and ratified it in 1998. And this is so because we believe this instrument to be indispensable as part of the disarmament and non-proliferation structure. We therefore urge all states to join it and to allow it entering into force. Now, as part of this affinity and close association with the CTBT, Brazil is a strong supporter of the PrepCom and of its Provisional Technical Secretariat. Brazil hosts 7 international monitoring system stations in different regions of the country. And since 2000, it has a secure signature account, which was just mentioned by Loipa in her presentation, and 7 registered establishments, 28 nominated users. That's the status right now. In 2009, Brazil hosted a training program for station operators in all of Latin America. And this year, we took another step and designated as the Brazilian National Data Center, the National Center for Monitoring and Alerts on Natural Disasters. Now, we have an acronym for this in Portuguese, which is CEMADEM. We were very honored to receive the visit of the Executive Secretary, Dr. Floyd, at the end of August for events. He took part in events in São Paulo, in Brasilia, and Rio. And he was also present at the designation of CEMADEM as the Brazilian NDC. And for Brazil, the selection of its NDC posed various challenges. I would name 2 in our case. First is the position of Brazil, I mean, as truly a country of continental dimensions. And also, and partly because of
وإلى حد ما بسبب ذلك هناك عدد من المؤسسات القادرة على تناول البيانات التي يتيحها مركز البيانات الدولي. طبعا انقضى وقت قبل انتقاء سيماديم
in favor of CEMADEM, and this institution that was founded in 2011, and it was, I mean, I'm talking about the Brazilian institution CEMADEM, as a consequence or as a result of certain events of severe flooding that took place close to Rio de Janeiro, and that led to heavy sort of rainfall and landslides. and a real tragedy that in a way opened the eyes of authorities about being better prepared to deal with these natural events, especially in the context of climate change. So CEMADEM was established to help monitor and give alerts about the signs that a natural disaster is imminent. And it does so throughout the 8.5 million square kilometers of the Brazilian territory, and with more than 6,000 widely spread sensors. And choosing CEMADEM as the NDC in Brazil shows the importance that we give to the incidental applications of the structure of the PrepCom CTBTO, because it enhances, of course, this institution's capability of detecting and trying to predict where natural disasters may take place. We are, of course, aware of that the technology developed by the IMS and the IDC is intended to uphold the main purpose of the treaty, which is, of course, to monitor nuclear tests. But we encourage the use of this structure for civil and scientific uses by state signatories, particularly by those who may not have a national structure for monitoring natural events. So we cannot but support the efforts of the BTS to take this technology to more countries, particularly those that do not access it yet. And the NDCs for All is a very important initiative that highlights the work of the PrepCom CTBTO while the treaty does not enter into force. I would say, in concluding, that Brazil remains open to collaborate with the initiative and with states that wish to establish their own national data center by sharing our experience. And we are ready to explore possibilities in that respect. So with these words, I would thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Ambassador, it was really excellent lecture on your national experience about the establishment of NDC in Brazil. I have been involved in some of this discussion. I know how difficult it was, and congratulations for establishing this national data center. So now, with your permission, I would like to invite Her Excellency Ms. Michaela Mocanu, Permanent Representative of the Republic of Moldova to the CTBT. Ambassador, you are welcome. Ambassador is really an experienced diplomat, working many posting in international relations and at the national capacity. She was the head of division for OSCE section. She was working as a consular in the Embassy of Moldova in Romania and in Embassy in Germany. So we have a great pleasure to welcome you to share your experience with us. Thank you very much. Madam Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Dear Lopa, dear Mohammed, dear audience, I would like to thank you for organizing this great event. It's very important also for us, for the Republic of Moldova, to be as much as active as we can at such events. So thank you very much. And I'm very honored to represent here my country and to share our experience. Maybe we do not have such a big experience as my colleague from Brazil, because we are at the beginning of the establishing this NDC. But as you know, the cooperation with the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization is also very important for the Republic of Moldova, especially in these challenging times. We highly appreciate your efforts undertaken by the CTBTO and in promoting global peace and security. This is very important, and this I want to highlight once again. in the actually in international environment, including the world that we have next door to us, the CTBT entry into force is more urgent than ever before. So we welcome the progress made towards universalization of the treaty and commend CTBTO for its dedicated work and in this regard. So I would like to say that the Republic of Moldova expresses interests of being part of this system, and that's why we very much welcome the initiative of the Executive Secretary Robert Floyd, National Data Center for All, and look forward to setting up finally a national data center also in the Republic of Moldova. There are a lot of reasons. There are several reasons which we would like to have this NDC in our country. I will stop only at two of them, which I consider that are the most important. And I will begin with the national, the first reason would be national security. Considering the recent development in our neighborhood and the major risk that the war has on our country, a national data center would function as an alert system in the event of any accident that could place, taking into consideration the situation around the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. And so the national authorities would take quick necessary measures to overcome the consequences since something would happen. And the other reason that we decided to go forward with the establishment of the NDC is the civil applications, because this data collected from these 300 international monitoring stations around the world can be used not only to detect nuclear explosions, but also to be useful for civil and scientific purposes. So the establishment of a national data center in my country would facilitate the technical interaction with the CTBTO on the one hand, and will improve the Moldova's national capabilities for using this data collected. So I could not agree more than on your assertion that the more data, the more benefit. It's really indeed, it's really indeed and it's really so. So we already have some national authorities that express their interest in establishing this national data center. Now we are in this internal procedure, and I hope very soon that we will end as this internal procedure in order to go to the next step to establish this national data center. So concluding, I would say that I look forward to extending the cooperation between the Republic of Moldova and CTBTO, and taking into consideration that I have a huge portfolio as ambassador here, because I'm also responsible for the bilateral issues, for the OSCE and for the UN organizations that are based here in Vienna. One of my priorities of my mandate will be is actually setting up of this national data center. So I hope very much that next year will be one of those not around 80 countries, but maybe the 80th one.
Yeah,
So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Excellent. So we rely very much on your promise. Thank you very much, Excellency. That was excellent. So we will go to the next panelist, Mr. Ismail Docosta Babo. Mr. Babo is President of Civil Protection Authority of Timor-Leste. He is police head that has been recently appointed by the Prime Minister of Timor-Leste to this very important post, which consists of 13 municipality commanders and 4 cabinet support. Under his command, more than 2,500 civil protection staff are working. So we have a great expert, a great manager, a great leader here that can nationally share some of experience on this important topic with us. So, Mr. Bobo, the floor is yours. I know that you have a presentation, so may I invite you to use this? Yeah.
Dear moderator, dear panelists, dear Excellency panelists, colleagues, dear members, country represent on the symposium, our colleagues from over the world to take part on the symposium in Vienna. Can you please show my presentation?
Yeah. Zukra, can you be sure that the presentation is playing?
Please apologize for technical issue.
No, that's fine. It's on.
The first allow me to express my profound appreciation and congratulations to the CTBTO for the successfully conference in Vienna. Timor-Leste, a younger country, we gained our independence in May 2002. We are considered a young country in the Asian and second young country in the world. The Civil Protection Authority, the Primary National Disaster Management Agency in Timor-Leste. The organization I'm lead is very new. Here, we try to learn from all of you to improve our capacity on our own homeland. Timor-Leste, with the medium disaster risk level, as you know, the 75 out of the 191 country by the 2023 Informed Risk Index. The threat posted by natural disaster in Timor-Leste always there, made risk the risk highest for us in the civil vulnerability to our population, as well the coping capacity both of the institutional and the infrastructure. Republic of Democratic Timor-Leste line at the Pacific Ring of Fire, the north of the subductic zone between the Eurasia and Asian tectonic plate and the phone to the earthquake. Out of the earthquake in Timor-Leste have not been very frequently historical. The seismic hazard in the region cannot be ignored. Most of the earthquake recording around the country originate, so they were not very close to proximity to our island. The impact of the system. Based on historical record, most of the earthquake have a magnitude range between 4 and 6. The earthquake hazard mapping of Timor-Leste show most of the part of the country fully under the MMI 7 intensity, and the western part of the under the level of the MMI 6 intensity. According to the Timor Hazard, more than 20% chance of the potential damage earthquake surge in the country in the next 50 years. As mentioned, Timor-Leste region is the interaction of the three major plates. Therefore, the distribution of the seismic surrounding the country complexes generated tsunami mostly will be affected in Timor-Leste along our Timor Sea and then Banda Sea. Based on historical record, 3 tsunami I already showed to you. We record 3 tsunami in Timor-Leste, but we try to try to make some documents currently for our disasters on tsunami. Timor-Leste, we are very closely related with our neighbor, Australian, Indonesian, to identify the risk of the tsunami occurrence in Timor-Leste the last period. Also, we are partnered with the IOC, UNESCO. Data centers, the disaster management purpose cooperation with the CTBT, Timor-Leste through the Civil Protection Authority, aim to strengthen early warning system. Also, civil protection, the collaboration with the CBTO, civil protection will be liberate, predicted analysis capacity of the international monitoring system to issue time warning to save more than life in Timor-Leste. The currently monitoring alert system outdated and obsolete. I hope the opportunity for us to improve more our early warning system through the CBTO supporting. Establishment of national data center and of goal enhancing the capacity of civil protection authority. We are ready to partner with the CBTO, host the national data center in our headquarters in Delhi. Welcome opportunity with commitment to allocate resource, including the dedicated personnel, but we will require our personnel to be trained to ensure they can optimize the data center in Timor-Leste. And Timor-Leste commitment, before I conclude, we are acknowledge the important and relevant of CBTO toward this end. We have led several important high-level meetings to strengthen our collaboration. The first high-level meeting was between the Excellency Minister of Foreign Affairs of Timor-Leste and Excellency Executive Secretaries of CBTO in November last year. To follow up, initial meeting in our Executive Secretariat visit to Timor-Leste on 28 March this year. It was agreed to second meeting in 21 June this year. After that discussion, I'm delighted to inform you the National Parliament of Timor-Leste has finalized ratified our comprehensive nuclear testing ban treaty on 27 June 2022. Lastly, I would like to appreciate to the CBTO to having us in this symposium. And furthermore, we are thanks to you for the next process to establish our data center in Timor-Leste. And then don't leave Timor-Leste behind of the other country in your high consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Lobo. Excellent presentation and finishes in very timely manner. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. So now we have the last member of the panel, but not least, Ms. Alejandra Martinez Gonzalez, who is a young professional member and a geophysical engineer from Caracas. She has been working as a seismic analyst in the Venezuelan NDC until 2021, and currently living in California, Mexico, where she's doing master degree in seismology and working at the same time in Sanda Center for Research and Higher Education. So it's a great pleasure to have you here. Please, floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed, for the introduction and dear panelists and dear audience. I would like to highlight the importance of NDCs in the GRULAC context. Of course, my experience working with NDC, as Mohammed just said, comes from my country of origin, which is Venezuela. And I know how important it is for a developing country to have this support for the CTBTO. Not only in the field of nuclear disarmament, a subject that you have addressed well these days at the symposium, but from the vision we have as a scientist, in my case, as a seismologist, and in terms of scientific and civil applications. And looking for new challenges for my professional development and academic development. A year and a half ago, I arrived in Baja California, Mexico, and as a seismologist, it has been fascinating for me. Mexico, as you may know, is a country with a high seismic hazard due to its geodynamic context, with outstanding institutions such as the National Seismological Service of the National Autonomous University of Mexico, which are the NDC hosts. And my understanding, and I'm very happy for that, is that they have just requested the installation of the CBS, and I hope this becomes a reality very soon. And my current affiliation, the Center for Research and Higher Education of Ensenada in Baja California, that I hope will soon be able to be part of the NDC initiatives. In addition, and as you may also know, Mexico operates in its territory 3 auxiliary seismic stations, 1 network of hydroacoustic stations, and a radionuclide station, which suggests a long-term involvement with the CTBTO initiatives. It's clear that NDCs notice the institutions where they are installed, and especially in Latin America, the Caribbean, and in general in developing countries, they are a suitable way for us to use new technologies, update systems, and make our monitoring systems more efficient. Not only through equipment installation, data flow, but also through NDC trainings. We have to remember that we, as a scientist or specialist, we are a fundamental part of the verification regime. So this last year in Mexico, I have given myself the task of spreading the word about the CTBTO at my new institution. I was doing the same thing in Venezuela, and the curiosity that issues related to the verification technologies and the verification regime aroused in the public is incredible. The feedback is great, and because of that, I know that we are doing things right. I think that if we want NDCs for all, we should spread the word about our experiences, and that's what we are doing here with this panel, and of course with the symposium. Finally, I want to take the opportunity to call on our colleagues in the Lesser Antilles to request access to the data, to take advantage of what the CTBTO offers to us, and again, not only in the field of nuclear disarmament, but as a benefit that it will allow them to be up to date with monitoring technologies. Considering that these areas of the Caribbean are prone to be seriously affected by tsunamis, big earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions, precisely because of their geodynamic context. So I encourage you to take a look, and here are those of us who have humbly had some experience to help you and advise you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alejandro, for this very important speech and conclusion. So with your permission, I would like to pose a question to you, and then you have 2 minutes to respond to this question, because I listened very carefully to your national experiences. And then, since we are very eager to find a way to make this initiative a successful one, we really appreciate if you could share with us from your point of view what would be the main challenges ahead of this initiative, and what is your recommendation, both for the PTS and both for the state signatory, because the establishment of NDC is a national issue that should be handled solely by state signatories. And the cooperation of states in this regard is essential. So I will start with Ambassador Duarte. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. Two very pertinent questions. Well, first on challenges. I think each country has their own challenges. I mean, and we have, just by listening to the presentations, I mean, let's say my own country is a relatively uninteresting country in seismic terms. If we compare it with other countries, I mean, it was mentioned Mexico or Timor-Leste. So we have different challenges. But this also means that there are different opportunities. And the opportunities for all countries is really to be able to use this wealth of information that the IDC provides and to connect it with their own institutions. And they will find ways of monitoring what they need to monitor. But if they can connect with this IDC, that I think is the main challenge. And the recommendations, I think, is to continue with this effort to engage countries and to also know what the PrepCom CTBTO Secretariat is doing with the NDCs for all, and try to get as many countries involved as you can. So I think this is the main recommendation, is to continue and to get more engagement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Excellency. So, Ambassador, if you...
Thank you. Yes, I do agree that the challenges depends also on the countries itself, and the challenges depends perhaps also on the national interests of each country. In terms of the Republic of Moldova, for example, I think that there are two challenges, but these challenges can be overcome, and very, very fast. So they are not a challenge for a long term, or even I don't think that it's a medium term, it's for a short term. The first one is the human resources, and the second one is the capacity building. But since the CTBTO can offer us all this capacity building in order to train the experts, in order to participate, this possibility on occasion to participate in different programs, projects, so on and so forth. So I think that this challenge can be overcome, and at the end it will not be such a huge challenge with pressing us. So from our perspective, I think this is the human resources and capacity building, and I'm absolutely convinced that when we will establish this MDC in the Republic of Moldova, we would have would appear many interested persons, specialists, experts who will be interested in develop their skills, in develop their knowledge, and why not to share already the lesson that we would learn in the future, if I may say so, with the other countries that are still hesitating to open and to establish a national data center. Recommendation is this to move forward, to keep doing it, to engage the countries, to convince in that way that you have managed to convince the Republic of Moldova to do it, because thank you very much, Lupa. And yes, this is these are the recommendation to keep doing it, because you do a great job. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mr. Babo?
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed. From our point of view, the challenge we face today is similar with the other countries around the world. How to save the life, property, and environment. How we can connect the science and then practitioner to working together to face challenge together, and then will be outcome solution together. One of the important today, also Timor-Leste took part. We are recommend to strengthen more our cooperation amongst the country around the world to save their life and property and environment. The important today, through the CBTO, will be provide more some capacity building, also some infrastructure supporting to bring up the other country. And we are frankly low-income country will come together the same with the other country to save their life, property, and environment in the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And Alejandro?
Well, about the main challenges for these initiatives, I would say, like, to be successful selling the idea to the countries which are not part yet of the NDC initiatives, but after Loipa's presentation, I think that you are doing a great job. So congratulations. And that's why these kinds of events like the Science and Diplomacy Symposium and the Science and Technology Congress, which is very soon, are very important because we are sharing our experiences and results as NDC users. And about my recommendation, that everybody hears in the audience finds spaces to talk about the CTBTO, the verification regime, the purpose of the treaty, etc. That what we are doing here with this panel of discussion is part of the work, for sure. And even if you are not part of the NDC trainings or of NDC initiatives, you all are here and you all now know about this program. So please spread the word. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Your recommendation are fully noted and really appreciated. So that's I just wanted, if you allow me, because I just wanted to invite colleagues and friends in the room, if we can have one question, because we are approaching the end of the session. Yeah, please.
Thank you very much. I'm Pineslas from Congo Brazzaville. I'm PPUC our NDC. I would like to ask my question in French, if possible.
Yeah.
Okay. J'ai une série de questions.
Now the question that I wanted to put Yes, my first question has to do with the new NDCs, which are going to be established soon. I remember that when NDCs started being set up, we had people visiting who had NDCs, and sometimes we had exchanges, give and take, and we could compare our NDC data. Why has this practice not been continued? The give and take of data. And my second question, in Congo, we have NDC, but there's some neighboring countries that don't, and we're sharing our data with them. Is it possible to help them set up NDCs, and exactly how does one go about this? Do they have some equipment already? basically, how can we get this act together? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, because this is mainly related to the PTS, if you allow me. First of all, I very much would like to touch upon the issue of cooperation among states. This is really essential. So we encourage cooperation among states. We use every opportunity to encourage states to help each other. So those who are in a better situation from technical point of view, they can provide help to the other states. And then if there would be regional cooperation, that would be very much appreciated. And I will give the floor to Loipa for further explanation. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Merci beaucoup pour...
Thank you very much for your question. It's a very interesting question for us. As I explained the other day, we were talking about this. It was today. It wasn't the other day. Yes, today. We talked about this. I explained to the gentleman, representative of Congo. There's the other Congo, which has no national data center. And you can share your experience with that country. But in any case, for the technical questions, it would be a very good thing if you could approach someone in the technical division, because when you fill out the form, there is a box where you're supposed to sign, and there's a request there asking you whether you wish to share your information with other countries or not. Perhaps your country, when it does this, doesn't actually do it, but if you wish, you can approach our staff, International Data Center, IDC. You have Madam Misra, for example, who is responsible for training, and she has all of the information which you can benefit from. But we're looking right now at the main concerns that country have in the way in which they implement this initiative.
Face. Yeah. One of the challenge, I will switch because for a long time I didn't speak French, so I try to, yes. One of the challenge that we have, the technical secretary, is the security. Many countries request us if they install the national data center, if they share the information. And we said, no. The national data center is to receive the information from us. You don't send the information to other countries, just if you want. This is important for security. Yeah. This is one of the challenges. Other challenge, for example, this year we installed the national data center in Cuba, in Venezuela, in Oman, in Montenegro, and now we have 18 requests, mainly 20, because Timor is in the process. Tomorrow, I think we have the request of Timor. So 20 countries, and we already have the request that we need for 2022, 2023. And I will use this opportunity to thank the European Union for the voluntary contribution that the European Union gives to us, because that allows us to buy more equipment for this initiative. This is one of the challenges that we have, and I want to share with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Loipa. And so with this explanation, we reach to the end of our panel. We would like to continue this discussion, and we have many requests for questions. Unfortunately, we are not able because we are under pressure of time. But let us thank again all of you and the great panelists for sharing their time with us, for providing this very useful opinion on the NDC for all and the recommendation that will be wholeheartedly taking into account in our way of working in future. So please join me in thanking the panelists. Thank you. The session is good. So the session is closed. Thank you very much.
Dear participants, we are starting with the next session in a few minutes.
No answers to questions. Anna, can you call Michael? Yes? Or check the microphone. They turn it off just in between so that it's not streaming on my phone, but it will be on. So, this is on. You stop it off. Stick or just to leave it? Mike's
Si hacen preguntas ellos. Buenas tardes. ¿Me escuchan bien? ¿Todo bien? Buenas tardes, distinguidos.
Good afternoon, distinguished participants, and welcome to the section which is called the International Data Verification System for the Reduction of Disasters, Disaster Reduction. After these last few days, which you have spent listening to many CTBTO places, the testing center, training center in Cybersdorf, and seeing the sensors and so on. I'm sure with all this information you'll be able to draw maximum benefit from this debate, which is going to be a sort of a mix of the technical side and diplomacy with various visual aspects. And also we're going to have discussions. My name is Guillermo Rocco. I'm the coordinator of one of the technical divisions in CTBTO. And today I'm going to be trying to assist our panelists with the message that they're going to transfer to you. And I want to try to capture the questions that we have in the room. We have exactly 55 minutes, and so this is why we have to be as effective and as efficient as we can possibly be. One important thing that I'd like to point out is that this session, as you can see, is going to be entirely in Spanish. And this is possible thanks to the generous contribution of the Embassy of Spain through the permanent mission here in Austria, to be able to have this type of session held in the Spanish language. CTBTO accepted this proposal, and as a part of our efforts, our ongoing efforts to promote multilingualism, I'd also like to stress the multicultural inclusion in the organization. You have here on this panel 5 distinguished countries represented this afternoon. Finally, the session will be interpreted in simultaneous fashion. I apologize to the interpreters for speaking too fast, perhaps. I hope that I can be interpreted. And we will be having then in all the languages, plus we will have questions, and we have the questions will also be interpreted, and we have the equipment here to do that, and the interpreters as well. So let me, without further ado, introduce our distinguished panelists today. And let me start with Her Excellency, Madame Murillo, permanent representative of Honduras. She's a civil engineer with a master's, with an MBA. She has more than 30 years of experience in managing and strategic planning, and she was a part of the direction team in the Honduran team where she participated in public policies promotion to promote science, technology, and innovation in Honduras. She has a very long career in the private sector as well. Welcome. Next, I'd like to introduce Licenciado Juan Vicente Cantavella, Director of the National Seismic Network of Spain. He has a PhD in physics, and he's a member of the state team of engineers. He's been working since 2005 as a seismologist, and since 2020 he's the director of the Spain National Seismic Network. He's responsible for the Tsunami Center since it was established in 2015. Juan Vicente, welcome to our panel. And here we have Dr. Sergio Barrientos, the director of the Chilean National Seismological Center based in Santiago, Chile. He obtained his first degree from the Universidad de Chile, and then a PhD in science, in earth sciences, in Santa Cruz, University of California in the United States. He also had, over the course of 9 years, between 1997 and 2006, he was the head of the seismic section of the International Management Center, the IMS, in this center. So he's a former colleague. Dr. Barrientos is an expert in the earth crust information associated with earthquake cycles. Welcome, Mr. Barrientos. And then I have Mr. Mario Villagran Herrera, who's working at the IDC Center, waveform specialist with 3 decades of experience in seismic management and seismology, has worked in various institutions such as, for example, INSIBUMET in Guatemala, NORCER in Norway, and SOREC in the Israeli Atomic Energy Commission. And he was responsible for the design and implementation of the CTBTO center of operations that you visited yesterday, or was it perhaps the day before. He's working currently as a specialist in seismic acoustic events for the IDC in this organization, in CTBTO. So, having introduced the panel, I would like to invite the last one. I introduce Mr. Mario Villagran Herrera to speak. Thank you very much, and a good afternoon to everyone, and a good day to all those who are listening to us in remote fashion. I'm extremely pleased to be here. Of the few possibilities we have to make presentations in Spanish, we're incredibly pleased to be able to do that here at this time. This symposium is being developing in a fantastic way, I think, and we're extremely privileged to be here. I have prepared a few slides, and I'm going to try to take the minimum amount of time to be able to fit my talk in the time that we have. The role of the use of data in the monitoring system for disaster risk reduction is a very important aspect, I have to say, and it is nothing new. First and foremost, we have the monitoring system. I'm not going to say too much about it because you already, after this day today, you are all experts in this subject and you know all about the different stations that we have. Soon we'll have 337 in all, of which 304 are already built and certified. So the math tells us here that we stand at about 90% of the establishment of the system because of the certified facilities. We have seismic data, hydroacoustic, infraacoustic, and radiological data. So since the whole idea is the use of data to be able to not verify, but rather for civil and scientific purposes, let me say, first of all, one thing very clearly. I want to explain what the principal role of the system is. You have been, you can see it here, but I need to say this, I believe, to be sure that you understand this. The main role is to detect seismoacoustic events and inform states parties in identifying which of these might have been explosions, nuclear explosions. We use wave technologies, hydroacoustic, infrasound, and for the smoking gun, as we call it, that would be the technology that helps us to determine whether an event has indeed released fusion products. Well, there's the radionuclide sniffers. So for us here, this map, which brings together the 21 years, in fact, of events that have been analyzed by our staff, first automatically and then persons have looked. We have about 700,000, 1,700,000 events that were analyzed in significant detail. And these events here, the idea to identify which one is an explosion is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. There's a lot of technology that is behind this, that underpins it. Now, to conclude the part of what the purpose is, the central goal of the system is, I have a slide here that shows the 6 nuclear explosions that the system has actually recorded during its life. We're not children, but we are looking at perhaps we could call ourselves teenagers at this point. And here are some traces that I think you will be able to appreciate, to be able to understand how we look at these events. Now, this is the radionuclide side of things, and as you can see, the atmospheric model here tells us where the particles are moving if they are emitted, and this was the case for the North Korea nuclear explosion in April 2013, DPRK. Now, if we focus on the topic that we're here for, that we're discussing today, the role of the system for this purpose, there are 4 topics that it's being used. The first one is bulletins of events that are sent to the ISSE, which is the International Seismological Institute. It's located in the United Kingdom, and that's for the entire international community of seismology. Data that are collected about the climate in radionuclide stations, they're shared with the International Meteorological Organization. And the third one is the one I'm going to mention now here, and that's the tsunami warning system, tidal wave system. And the last one is to provide data to be able to use this data for science. So the first two have set goals and are not really part of our discussion here. So I'm going to focus on 3 and 4. And as the Perpetuity Commission said, in agreement with UNESCO, any national or regional network, which is a center for monitoring and which is monitoring for earthquakes, can have an agreement, enter into an agreement with CTBTO if it has been recognized by the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO. And if they bring that certificate, then CTBTO will make the necessary arrangements. And in this case, we've done this with Chile, with Spain, and soon with Honduras. The data is provided, and currently more than 100 stations are being used for tsunami alerts. 20 tsunami centers in 19 different countries are collecting these data. The last slide I have for you here is about how we can obtain the data for science. We have a platform that was launched more than a decade ago, which is called the Virtual Data Exploitation Center, with which academic scientific institutions, national institutions as well, of states can have a contract, an agreement to obtain data from the system and output from the system, which is not provided the same way instantaneously as the data centers, because there is a system, it's for science, for research, and there are no problems when you're doing this for research. And after there's a zero cost, a $0 agreement, there are some commitments that have to be entered into, and once that's all done, the data is provided. I've concluded the initial part here, and I'd like to give the floor to my colleague Miguel, who will continue. Thank you very much, Mario. I'm very grateful for that. Before we go to the next stage, are there any questions for Mario? Because if you don't put the question now, you will have an opportunity to put questions later. Well, very soon in Honduras, we will have this center. We're about to have a discussion with Her Excellency, the Ambassador of Honduras. And Honduras is the country that most recently signed an agreement with CTBTO. That was in September, and very soon will enter into effect very soon. I'd like to ask you, what were the reasons for Honduras to participate in this agreement in this way, the signing and so on? What were Honduras's reasons?
Sí, muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Guillermo, thank you. Well, I am honored. Among these eminent experts, when I heard the curriculum vitae, I said to myself, these are real experts, eminent experts. I'm not an expert, but I am familiar with it. I've been listening since yesterday to the explanations and all of the presentations, and I have been very impressed, I must say, and delighted. So I thank you for having placed me alongside these eminent experts. In fact, Latin America and the Caribbean is a zone which is highly populated and free of nuclear weapons, because way back in 1967, there was the signing of the Tlatelolco Treaty, nuclear weapon-free zone. And I'm saying this because many of you will wonder, what is the work that the CTBTO can do in the region and especially in a country like Honduras, a country that doesn't have any monitoring stations from the Commission. During yesterday, where there was a talk about the peaceful and scientific use of the Preparatory Commission in Honduras, we wanted to draw maximum benefit of the alliance with the organization and contribute information that will make it possible for us to monitor extreme climate events, weather events that are taking place in the region where there are no nuclear tests at all. Honduras is well aware that the work, the peaceful uses of the Commission is extremely important. And for this reason, last September, as was touched upon by Guillermo, we signed the Tsunami Alert Agreement, which encouraged what encouraged us to sign this early tsunami warning system agreement? Well, because we're very vulnerable when there are hurricanes, earthquakes, local tsunamis sometimes, because I don't think we are exposed according to the Global Climate Risk Index. We are one of the countries that has the greatest vulnerability or risk in the world. And with this agreement, we wanted to strengthen our national data centers of the Secretariat for managing the contingencies and risk system. Earlier, it was a group where the President Castro elevated it to a secretariat. Why did it do so? Well, because we are extremely at risk, very vulnerable, and we do need to give attach greater importance to the subject. Now, we want to train staff so that they have the necessary skills to be able to carry out analyses and propose solutions and provide timely alerts to the populations when there are extreme climate events. An early warning can be vital in terms of saving lives when such an cataclysmic event occurs. Yesterday, we were able to visit the National Data Center. We did not go along with the rest of the group, but a visit was prepared to the center. And I think that the work that is done with the experts of the center is critically important. Many countries that have not signed the early warning tsunami alert system is because they simply are not aware of it. This information is critically important. And how can we use this information to benefit our population? Because that is basically what we need to have, information to be able to alert or protect or take actions that will benefit our population. Today, I'd like to make an appeal to those of us who are present that we should use the information, that we should put forward a training program on the scientific use that the Commission is offering us, making available to us, especially for those countries that do not carry out nuclear tests but are affected by a number of different climate-related events. Also, I'd like to say that we should strengthen the work of the CTBT, and we should find coordination and make sure there's coordination among UN organizations. And in this case, I am working with the IAEA to improve capacity building through the Data Center for All initiative, draw maximum benefit of the equipment, and I am certain that we can pool our efforts and strengthen and give additional training to our experts in the field. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ambassador. A very powerful message. We're very vulnerable to environmental events, and putting forward training is very important. I'd like to ask whether there's a question in the room. Otherwise, we'll move straight to the next presentation, and we'll invite Licenciado Juan Antonio to tell us a little bit about his experience in the risk reduction his data for risk reduction.
Hola, buenas tardes. Muchas gracias a la OTPCE por...
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a privilege for me. It's an honor as well to be present with you here in this panel, and for those who are listening to us remotely. I have a presentation that it's not this slide. In the statement, I'm going to briefly introduce the risk of tsunamis in Spain, and I'll tell you about the strategy that Spain is following to face down this challenge, as well the role of the CTBTO in the tsunami alert system for Spain. Yes, I think we've got the presentation there. I think it'll take a couple of minutes perhaps, but I'm sure we're going to get it.
Ahí estamos.
Disculpen. Bien. Este es un mapa con...
This is a map with the sources of tsunamis over the course of history throughout the world, everywhere. We can see that as far as Spain goes, although fortunately for us, it's not the same case as Chile, which we'll see later, but it's a country where there have been some tsunamis over the course of history, going back in history. These are tsunami-causing events in this area, and then there's a map of the epicenters that have generated tsunamis on the tidal waves on the coast of Spain. You can see the Eurasian tectonic plates. There are sources over a very long period of time, of course, but although it's a good thing that they're not very frequent, it means that the population forgets all about the fact that there is this risk. But over the course 1775, there was one which caused thousands of lives in Spain and Portugal, north of Africa, and it's possible that if it were to take place today, the risk would be much greater, the danger would be much greater, because of the population that has increased on the coast enormously. A little bit of history about the national system and tsunami alert system. 2013, Spain joins the tidal wave system in the Mediterranean. 2013, we have a basic civil protection system for seaquakes and so on in the IGN. 2016, the system is implemented, and in 2021, we have a state plan for civil protection in terms of the tidal wave risks from seismic events. And then we have local plans as well for the protection from seaquakes. This is the zone that covers the Euro-Mediterranean area, and we're part of this system, but we're also a national system for the seaquake alert. This system is basically based on seismic alerts. In other words, the detection, monitoring of earthquakes. When these earthquakes are detected by the national network in about 2 minutes, a whole series of tools is set up to determine whether it could generate a tsunami, and this can react in a question of just a few seconds, just like for tsunamis or other more costly ones, such as the numerical simulation of the propagation of a tsunami, and finally real registers of the level of the sea levels by sea experts. Finally, here, the idea is to disseminate information about an alert where we indicate that the earthquake that has just occurred, for example, presents a risk of a tsunami, and which parts of the coast would be affected, and what would the level of their affection be, and what is the approximate arrival time of the first wave. The idea here is that the population should have some time, a few minutes, perhaps as much as half an hour, to react and take measures when faced with a possible tsunami event. As we've seen, this is a part of the seismic system. This is a picture that shows the alert control room for the earthquakes, seismic activities over the national territory and the zones that affect our country. This is the control room where these the seismic activity is seen. We have a number of seismometers, seismic detectors around our country and in proximate zones. Not all of them are managed by the IGN, but there have been some agreements have been entered into with other institutions and with international institutions to receive data from other sensors. You can see that we have pretty good coverage for the peninsula, but there is a lack of information in the North African area, which is extremely important to have in order to be able to get the data that we need to be able to react to earthquakes in those areas. So since 2015, because of this, the lack in Africa, we thought we would enter into an agreement with the CTBTO for the use of data from the International Monitoring System, IMS, for tsunami alerts. This started in 2015, but was not approved until May 2022, 5 months ago. And I have to say that there were problems in our country, bureaucratic issues and so on. But at the last stage, we had a lot of assistance from the permanent representation of Spain at the United Nations and the international organizations in Vienna that helped very much to unlock systems and to have a signature of this agreement. We have, in addition to the primary stations, which we use for seismic monitoring in Toledo, in Spain, we have the Midelt in Morocco and in Tunisia as well. We have a center. I just pointed to it. They cover zones which we have very few data for, and you will see these are determinant to. They're crucial to be able to have proper detection of earthquakes. You'll see this later. As we could see in the earlier slides, as a result of this agreement, we have stations that are excellent quality, ones that give us extremely high quality and very valuable information. These are 3 examples that show over the course of the last 6 months, there have been moderate earthquakes between 3 and 5 in the Atlantic with the Midel, one from Morocco, the Mar del Alboran from that station, and in Algeria, in the north of Algeria here, using the Tunisian one as well, as you can see in east of the epicenter of this earthquake. We were able to fill that gap. There was a gap there. We were able to fill it in. Now, the last tsunami experienced by Spain was in 2013, and it was the result of an earthquake that occurred to the north of Algeria in this zone, which caused in the Balearic Islands waves that were more than a meter high. I think this is an important example of very fruitful cooperation between diplomacy and science, in our case, for the use of data from the International Monitoring System for risk reduction. Thank you very much for your attention.
Muchas gracias, Juan Vicente. Un gran ejemplo de la aplicación de...
Thank you very much. It's an excellent example of the use of data from CTBTO. So the last one was 2013, going back in history and to look at tsunamis. So I wonder how Spaniards would react today, since the coast is so well known, so famous, and so populated in Spain. What would be the reaction today? Yes, thank you for the question. Well, it was in 2013, the last tsunami that we experienced on the Spanish coasts. 2013. I'd like to say that it would respond, I think, very appropriately, but I don't know if that actually would happen. Unfortunately, I can say that over the course of the last 10 years, for example, we have experienced a very hopeful stage because we've seen an increase in the awareness as to the danger of tidal waves, of tsunamis. As I said, in 2015, a directive was approved about all of these plans, state plans, regional plans, local plans, to prevent this risk or mitigate this risk. We haven't completed all of these, but we're well on the way in 2015 at the state level. And now we have a region where the regional plan is a draft and is about to be adopted or approved. And so I think this gives us hope. Thank you very much. Fascinating. And we'll continue. We have very little time. So now I'd like to turn to Mr. Sergio Barrientos, Director, National Seismological Center, Chile. Your presentation, please. Well, we have less than 5 minutes for your presentation, but please go ahead. Well, I'd like to thank the CTBTO for organizing this and Spain as well for facilitating this, this meeting. I think we don't hear Spanish spoken often in these major conferences, so I'd like to congratulate you on your initiative. And it's a pleasure to be able to do it in Spanish in this way. I'd like to spend a few seconds on 2 main points. First of all, why are these data important in the IMS? What are we learning? What are we seeing? What is it good for? How can we use it? Now, we've seen that this is extraordinary for the case of Spain. For example, the tsunami alert system in Chile, we have a problem, a tremendous problem actually. If you add up the energy which is released in the form of earthquakes in the world since 1900, more than 30% came from the Chilean earthquakes. This gives you an idea of the enormous problem our country has in terms of the natural disaster dangers from natural disasters. So I'd like to say there are different ways of dealing with this, making best possible use of the data, and that is to better understand the phenomena that occur, these natural disasters, and the better we know them, the better we understand them, the better we will know them and be able to predict what is the behavior, what is going to happen. And we are going to have 2 specific points in this presentation when I talk about the origin of the tsunamis and also the case of a volcanic eruption. But I would say that in addition to this, we have the data that come from technology and that were not actually used. Infra-acoustic, for example, that are opening up new windows that are tremendously innovative. And we don't know to what extent they are actually going to be even more open than now. What we're seeing now in nature, we had never seen before. We had never seen with this granular level of detail. And how we can actually use all of these instruments. It's absolutely extraordinary. It's exceptional. And in seismology, we have already the stations all over the world. But in spite of this, the International Monitoring System also contributes a tremendous amount of data. And that's basically what I wanted to stress or highlight, all the aspects. We have the new systems, new monitoring systems, which has a huge number of stations all over the world. And the other aspect is the new phenomena which are occurring and which have been captured for the first time at this level. For example, the Tonga eruption this year, where it's a phenomenon that does not occur, or let's say it has periods of recurrence every 100 years. So we have to wait 100 years to be able to capture the essence of a phenomenon such as the Tonga eruption. And this is where the International Monitoring System is extremely useful when it captures this particular thing, this particular eruption. Next, the emergence of new measures to be able to analyze the information and analyze information which comes out of, which is the output of all these stations, generated by these stations. The methods, the machine learning, this is absolutely extraordinary, and it is helping us to see in depth the details of things that the human eye was not able to examine as efficiently as these systems are doing. So these 2 elements are opening up for us amazing a window on the future. Now, I don't think anybody can actually predict where we're headed, how far we're going to go. But this database has been absolutely fantastic. Now, if I could continue with the next slide. Yes, here, this one. Well, I'd like to just spend a few seconds on this one, talk about how we generate this. There's a change in the figure on the right. It talks there, it mentions the change of the sea floor, which suddenly will rise when there is an earthquake. This enormous amount of energy which has been accumulated for hundreds or thousands of years, and when it's released, you have this rising up of the sea floor. So this sudden rising of the sea floor is what creates a tsunami. And how much is it? Is it 1 meter? Is it 2 meters? Is it 5 meters? Is it 10 meters? This is what we have to try to determine. In the case of Tohoku, 2011, it was the displacement, which was more than 60 meters. And that is something where more than 20 meters, in fact, it went up. In the case of Maule in Chile, that earthquake, it's about 20 meters of displacement of the plates. About 8 to 9 meters was the actual seafloor rise. If you can't characterize this, if you cannot see it as soon as possible after the occurrence of the earthquake, then if you can do this, then it will be possible to predict approximately what the level, what the height of the wave will be that hits the coast. And that's a tremendously important tool, which we achieve with the observation tools, hydroacoustic, the seismic part, the waves that move the fastest. Now in Honga Tonga, the eruption that occurred there in that place was an incredible surprise with the systems that we have now and generating tsunamis. We knew pretty well what the origin of tsunamis were and how that mechanism worked. But it turns out that at the beginning of the year, there was an eruption, and that eruption, I have here a diagram. No, I actually have I don't know if I can run this little clip, little video on the left side, left low, at the bottom left side. Well, if we can't do it, we can't do it. Ah, there it is. Yes, we can see it here. Now, if you look at this here, bottom left, this is from an ordinary tsunami in the sense that it's understood. But there is a wave that is in front of it. It's much forward to the right. And that wave was produced by a pressure wave that is rather unusual, except in the very large eruptions where there is a release of vapor, water vapor, that expands incredibly quickly, and there's an enormous explosion usually in these huge eruptions. But this mechanism where there is a sound wave, an acoustic wave, it generates a change in the ocean, and that is what is detected. The tsunami is coming later, it follows. The regular tidal wave or tsunami that one is accustomed to seeing comes later, but it's that pressure wave, that acoustic wave that comes first in advance of the tsunami. And that was seen. We didn't understand it at first. We couldn't see it in the first few minutes, first few hours, but in fact, it had a magnitude in accordance with the world tsunami systems for alerts. It had a magnitude of 1 to be able to simulate how this was taking place. This was an opportunity which was extremely important for learning, and we're going to continue to learn for years about this eruption specifically as a result of the systems that were capturing all of this information at the IMS. So I'd like to conclude on this. Basically, in Chile, we have seen it in this way. This tsunami produced a rise of the sea level about 2 meters. On the other side of the world, 1,000 kilometers away, we see a 2-meter tidal wave. We see a 2-meter change in the sea level. So the impact of this and knowing these phenomena and being able to predict this is something that is tremendously important. And we can do it precisely because we have these data, and also, as was mentioned earlier, about the about the things that make it possible to have access to these data. So the early warning system can work with these improvements in new data, in new methodologies, but especially support those countries that do not have their own tsunami alert systems. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much. I have to point out that Dr. Barrientos was responsible for many of our stations and the establishment of our stations, and we're always grateful to all the engineers who have done this. That was more than 20 years ago. Now, new efficiencies, well, another opportunity in 100 years, perhaps. We will await that event, and I'd like to see whether in the group here we have any questions. This would be the right time to put a question, if you have one, or make a comment, perhaps. I see that we have 2 or 3 questions, but we only have about 2 minutes for this. Thank you very much. Well, as a part of the UNRR, I'd like to put a question to the entire panel. This is the Disaster Relief Organization. I'm a member of the Sendai stakeholders, and I'd like to know what your perspective is for this, our inclusion in this. Well, are any volunteers to take this question from UNDDR? Well, I think that it should be my hat. Some of us are actually members of CTBTO, but along with this type of symposium, the one that we're currently discussing, we have a very strong vector with the youth group. You're familiar with the youth group. Now, what are the goals here, the objectives? Well, basically to pass on information about our existence and involve youth, and to get them to and help them in the future academic research, perhaps, and their future careers, so that many of those who participate from the side of the youth group might become interested in physics, for example, in diplomacy, and all of the branches that are necessary for this kind of work, where there's this interplay of different careers here. And we're all getting a little older here, that's no secret, and we obviously need some fresh blood. We have to have people come in and replace us at some point. So my message would be that as youth, please participate and invite your friends and your compatriots and so on to do the same. Thank you very much, Mario. Do we have another question? We have time for one more question. I've just heard that in a couple of minutes, interpretation will stop at 4:30 in a few minutes. So let's just very briefly take 2 more questions and then perhaps a response, very brief. Please go ahead. Yes, please go ahead. Yes, please go ahead. Thank you very much for giving me this space to talk. Well, in the earlier presentation, we saw that the information that was given to the IMS was for the management of the organization, data provided by countries, but we have an excellent experience in Central America. We have a network through the Central American system, the SICA as it's known, through each there is provision of information which is received and it's shared, because it's a multi-threat, multi-risk area in Central America. And it's possible that this agreement could also be done on a regional level, not only in a bilateral way between us and the Secretariat. It would be value added. I think we'd have 5 countries in one fell swoop if we did that. In the case of the other countries outside the Central American area, my colleague from Honduras is very familiar with this. They carry out simulations. There's participation of the population. Population is involved. In Nicaragua, we have excellent experience, where we have at least 4 multi-threat exercises or simulations where depending on the risk. Of course, the level of risk is different. So we carry out these drills in the zones that have access to the beaches of the Pacific or the Caribbean. Well, it's tsunami alerts that we have. If it's near a volcano, it's a seismic risk, eruption, and so on. The idea is to get people familiar so that when something happens, they know what they have to do, what are the authorities who are the authorities involved, what is the protocol for action. And I'm asking this to my colleagues from Spain and Chile because I know that in Central America we also have a lot of data in this area. Thank you very much. That was one of the longest questions I've ever heard, but thank you very much nonetheless. Very briefly, we have very little time. Please go ahead. Yes, it's on. The mic's on. Yes. Well, I could take that part. Thank you for the question. We don't have any regional systems except in some cases where there are volcanoes, because the volcanoes are on the border with Argentina in the case of Chile. And in those cases, we have protocols that have been established already with the authorities and institutions that are relevant. For the case of tsunamis, it's a local problem in Chile only. But in the near future, we are carrying out joint exercises with Peru. So there are studies, scientific studies, in fact, that are bilateral studies. So I just wanted to answer that way. We have two questions very briefly. Please go ahead. Thank you very much. Yes, just a question for the Commission, for Mario, perhaps, about the work that the Commission is doing. We know that the Commission in some areas, in the area specifically of disarmament, is similar to what is done with nuclear energy, for example. So my question is the following. I understand, thanks to the visits that we had yesterday, that there is cooperation between the two agencies, the CTBTO and the IAEA. But I'd like to know a little bit beyond the interagency work. What is the work that is being done among the countries? As beneficiaries, we receive equipment, in this case from the nuclear energy side, and very often, I think, I'm not sure, I'm not a scientist, but I think that a lot of this equipment could well be used in order to be able to work on subjects with CTBTO, for example. So sometimes it's just a question of software, I think. And I'd like to know what is the work that the Commission might be thinking about in order to be able to shore up this work, to strengthen this work. As my colleague said from Nicaragua, we're highly vulnerable when it comes to natural disasters, but we must not forget that we are at a strategic point in countries where are in a conflict, for example, and we, in spite of the fact that we're free of nuclear weapons, we strategically find ourselves between two zones that for many, many years have had, shall we say, complications, or where there is an event where there might be events that are not specifically natural disaster type events. Mario, very briefly. Well, that's a difficult one, but I'm going to try. First of all regions of the world have a certain level of vulnerability or risk of one type or another. We have to take into account really very clearly that the CTBTO is there for one goal, one purpose, and we must be extremely careful not to divert attention, deflect or divert from the work that we're doing and lose sight of our objective. So when I opened the session, I did it by explaining what the main purpose, main goal of the IAEA is. Now, everything else, well, it depends on member states. And for our part, the Preparatory Commission has opened up possibilities to provide data to centers such as the Tsunami Warning Center and data for scientific purposes. Same with some of the outputs that we have. And I'm thinking of what Sergio mentioned now, there needs to be bilateral cooperation or tripartite cooperation or multilateral cooperation from various regional points to be able to see what are the vulnerabilities, what are the needs, and what are the solutions. And lastly, in the case of the IAEA, the treaty also includes, one of the general conditions of it says that we can cooperate and use other resources from other organizations. And we have a commission that works between the IAEA and the CTBTO, where we provide data and assistance if required when there are radiological disasters. Very well. We have now more or less run out of time. It's very interesting to hear that we have a number of questions, have had a number of questions, and there's one last one. Please, if it's short, we'll take it.
I have a question to Mr. Cantavilla. Is Spain or are these data shared with neighbor countries to guarantee cooperation, and what does this cooperation look like Portugal, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I'll respond to the question briefly. We have bilateral cooperation agreements with Portugal, France, where we exchange seismic data and data about the sea level. And also, we're a part of the tsunami alert system of the Atlantic and the Mediterranean, where we also share the alerts that come from sources that come from other countries, for example. Thank you very much. Well, thank you. And I'd like to thank Spain once again for having facilitated this session in Spanish, first time in a symposium like this. And my thanks to the panelists for their presentations, for responding to questions. And I thank all of you for your questions. And I wish you a good evening, and we'll stop our meeting right here.
Necesitamos más tiempo. Creo que hay muchas preguntas para pero creo que no sé cuánto están viendo, pero y todo está en YouTube, está grabado, así que lo pueden usar para sí. Pero bueno, y ya no les mando más, pobrecitos, que no van a querer saber.